Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Joe Hamilton, along with my buddy, Scott Tobin. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Joe. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a very special day in the world of baseball. We'll get to that in a second. What a day it was weather-wise. It got cooler. The clouds are coming in, and we could see rain by tomorrow. But, Scott, I guess you would agree with this. It's been a really nice week.
Yeah, it's not been too bad. Early in the week, it was a little bit cool, but yeah, it's getting better. It's going to be cold this weekend. I think it's only supposed to be in the 50s over the weekend with a chance of rain tomorrow and Saturday. So it's the middle of spring, man. This is the kind of weather you get from time to time. So, but warmer days are coming.
Warmer days are coming for sure. Today, like I said, today is a very special day in the world of baseball. It's Jackie Robinson Day, and it is now relevant more than ever. Now more than ever because of everything going on in the world, and diversity needs to be celebrated a little bit more. Scott, do you see a little more meaning in Jackie Robinson Day, or is that just me?
I mean, I think there's always meaning in Jackie Robinson Day because you realize what he did for the sport. So yeah, I think it always should be celebrated. People need to go back. A lot of people probably don't even know who Jackie Robinson is. A lot of young kids, people need to go back and research and understand what Jackie Robinson went through to break that color barrier in baseball. So yeah, it's a special day in baseball, and it's a special day in American history, not just in baseball, because Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in baseball started to break color barriers all over the place. It was a big. It was right in the middle of the turning point in America in a lot of ways with racial division.
Every time I think of Jackie Robinson, I think of the movie 42, just because, yes, I've done my research on Jackie Robinson, but I'm a visual learner, you know what I mean? So I like to watch things happening. And I was Jackie Robinson's life depicted the right way, baseball-wise, in that movie?
It was. They did a really great job in that movie. The late great Chadwick Boseman did an amazing job playing Jackie Robinson in that movie, and it's a great movie. If people haven't seen it, they need to go check it out because it really gives you a look into what Jackie went through.
Yeah, it really does. And it kind of hurts me, Scott, that the Cardinals are not playing on Jackie Robinson Day. That just makes no sense to me. In my mind, Scott, every team should be playing on this day. I don't care.
Well, they're going to for teams that didn't play today, they're going to celebrate it tomorrow. So MLB's kind of made it a 2-day thing. So the teams that don't play on the actual Jackie Robinson Day, they celebrate it the next day. So they will. The Cardinals will all wear the number 42 and they will celebrate Jackie Robinson Day in Philadelphia tomorrow.
Yeah, as well they should. And I was talking to my father earlier. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The fact that that game at Dodger Stadium tonight isn't more prime time than 9 o'clock is a little irking to me. He was a Dodger for the longest time. Yes, he wasn't a Los Angeles Dodger, but still, that I just feel like that should be given more love than the normal 9 o'clock start time. Granted, it is 7 o'clock there.
Right. Yeah. If you move it any other time in LA, there's not going to be anybody in the ballpark because people are still going to be at work and sitting in traffic. So you can't really move that game in the middle of the week in Los Angeles to a different time because it would affect fans actually being in the ballpark. And Jackie Robinson did play in LA. He broke the color barrier when they were still in Brooklyn, but he did play for the LA Dodgers.
How long was he in LA, Scott? I didn't realize. I always seen him as a Brooklyn Dodger.
Not very long because Jackie's career wasn't very long. I think maybe 1 year in LA, 1 or 2.
That's amazing. I'm glad that we're seeing more and more players kind of embrace that heritage. I mean, you're seeing it now with the Players Alliance, and they're doing a lot in the community. If Jackie Robinson were still, what do you think Jackie Robinson is thinking up there? Do you think he's thinking Major League Baseball players are doing the right things by, using their platform? Or what do you think Jackie Robinson would think about what Major League Baseball and their players are doing now?
I'm not going to put words in Jackie Robinson's mouth, but yeah, I mean, we know that he used his platform as a player to try to have social reform and try to change things, try to stop injustices in the racial division. And so, yeah, I'm sure that he's happy that Major League Baseball is doing things and trying to honor him and trying to honor diversity in the game.
Yeah, that is for sure. And that game, the Dodgers are playing at 9:00. And hey, the Dodgers on Jackie Robinson Day. It'll be. I think they're wearing the Brooklyn hats too, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they should, in honor of Jackie Robinson. Even though he did play in LA, just that Brooklyn look. That's such a clean look, Scott.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. Other than the fact that there's not a B on their uniforms, they're pretty much the same. But yeah, I think they do wear the Brooklyn hats on Jackie Robinson Day every year.
So, Scott, I know you didn't get to watch much today. I was watching a little bit of the Nationals game, and I'll get to scores here in a little bit. But there were like 5 home runs in an inning. 5 home runs in an inning. Nationals and Diamondbacks. And Patrick Corbin pitched tonight. He was supposed to pitch yesterday in St. Louis, but they wanted to play the numbers, and Patrick Corbin's not great outside of Nationals Park. Although he comes back today and gets absolutely shelled in an inning. So I don't understand what the Nationals were doing there.
So where did they play today?
They played at home today. They played at home today against the Arizona Diamondbacks.
So didn't you just say he's really good at Nationals Park?
He's better at Nationals Park. But the thing is, they didn't pitch him they didn't pitch him on the road because his splits are just that bad. Now you think the Nationals are questioning that decision? He was supposed to pitch yesterday, remind you.
I don't think so. I mean, Patrick Corbin's a good pitcher. I wouldn't be all that worried about his splits in a short amount of time because Patrick Corbin's one of the better pitchers in the National League. If they made that decision, it's probably a good decision, but decisions and game plans don't always work out the way you plan for them to. And obviously it didn't for Washington today.
It didn't, that's for sure. We'll get to the scoreboard here in a second. Right as we got off the air last night, Scott, a no-hitter was thrown. Damn near close to a perfect game, Carlos Rodon. Question to you is he an underrated pitcher on that staff?
I don't know if he's underrated on that staff because they've got a pretty good staff when you have Lucas Giolito and Dallas Keuchel and Lance Lynn. And so, I mean, he's a solid major league pitcher. He had a great game last night. I don't know that even throwing that no-hitter, he's better than the number 4 in that rotation, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not better than the number 4, but it's nice to have guys like that pitch well. And he does have a good arm, so it'll be interesting. A guy who pitched well tonight, and that's where I'm going to get the scoreboard, Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn is starting. It ticks me off every time Lance Lynn is on the mound because now I go back to the Cardinals' decision not to keep him and keep Michael Wacha, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell were the Cardinals doing? He's going out there, Scott, every 5th day and giving you good performance after good performance. Granted, it's early in the season, but do you ever kick the Cardinals for that?
No, because I was begging them to not sign Lance Lynn when they didn't. I was happy they didn't sign Lance Lynn, to be honest with you. And you can't say that they kept Michael Wacha and didn't keep Lance Lynn because Lance Lynn was a free agent. Michael Wacha wasn't. So, there wasn't that same comparison there because they weren't in the same position. Lance Lynn's an okay pitcher. He was okay. He had one really good year with the Cardinals. If you go back and look at his stats as a Cardinal, other than 1 year, he was a 500 pitcher for the most part. He didn't do anything terrific other than that very first year he won 18 games. Other than that, he was like a 15-13, 12-10 type pitcher for the Cardinals. He wasn't a superstar when he was here.
He wasn't a superstar, but he was a prototypical bell cow in terms of giving you innings every 5th day, and that's what this Cardinal rotation desperately needs. But let's get to the MLB scoreboard here. The Miami Marlins and Atlanta Braves played in Atlanta. Atlanta wins this one 7-6. Seattle doubles up Baltimore by a score of 4-2. You have the Cleveland Indians beating the Chicago White Sox 4-2. The Arizona Diamondbacks, this game is live now, beating the Washington Nationals in the bottom of the 8th inning, 11-6. The Phillies and Mets are postponed. Man, there must be rain coming in and out of New York at all times because the Mets have been postponed twice in a week because of rain. One was a suspension, but still, that just seems that doesn't put your rotation in a rhythm, does it?
Well, I mean, it's spring. You're going to have that happen. You get spring showers coming in and out. And so, this is the time of the year where you usually see a lot of rain delays and cancellations. So, it's just part of the early season in baseball.
It is part of the early season in baseball. It sucks sometimes, but you gotta live with it. The San Diego Padres beat the Pittsburgh Pirates by a score of 8-3. The Boston Red Sox, Minnesota Twins, that game ends 4-3 in favor of Minnesota.
So that snapped the Red Sox win streak.
Yeah, hey, you know what? They weren't going to win them all, but I'd be interested to see how the Red Sox bounce back from it because, again, like we said, the Red Sox pitching isn't exactly top tier and probably not even close to top tier. So, again, that'll be very interesting. You had game 2 between the Seattle Mariners and Baltimore Orioles today. Seattle beat Baltimore 2-1. Texas and Tampa Bay is underway. Bottom 8 in that one. It's tied at 4. So it's been a good day. There are a couple things I want to talk to you about, Scott, in the next segment. One is, on Jackie Robinson Day, there's some pitchers that are giving up their salaries. That's an interesting point I want to get into and your thoughts on that. And also, there are a couple rule changes that the Major Leagues is trying out in the Atlantic League. So I'll be interested to get your thoughts on both of those. So we're going to go to break, but when we come back, more of the conversation on Major League Baseball right after this.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good one.
Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Joe alongside Scott. Scott, there are some pretty prominent pitchers giving up their salaries on Jackie Robinson Day. Talk about that because it just adds to the majesty that is Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah, there's quite a few players. I think there was more than 100, correct?
Yes,
they're giving up their salaries in honor of Jackie Robinson Day. That's a neat thing to do. It's another way to honor Jackie Robinson. So yeah, it's a great thing that some of these major league players are doing.
Do you think that more players should do it than just the 100? Like, it was known that David Price, I'm trying to think of some other pitchers, but there were a pretty prominent list of pitchers. So is this the first year they've been doing this, Scott?
I believe so, but I'm sure that once it starts, and I think there were more than just pitchers. I think there were some other players involved as well. So yeah, I think that it'll be something that probably evolves over the next few years. But yeah, it's a neat thing, and hopefully it's something that continues and evolves, and more players do that.
Yeah, let's hope it continues because that's the best thing about sports, man. Yes, you have guys that won't do things like that, but then you have an overwhelming amount of guys that, think like this, Scott. I'm getting paid handsomely to play a game for kids, basically. So I'm going to give back to the community however much I can, right?
Yeah, and, there's a lot of players, most of the players in Major League Baseball do something, and a lot of them do multiple things, and a lot of them don't want publicity, so you never hear about it. But there are lots and lots and lots of players in Major League Baseball and in all sports that are very generous with their time and their money in their communities and around the country doing things like this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm glad that teams are wanting their players to do this. I'm glad players are just themselves doing it. So some of the players involved in this are David Price and Jason Hayward, and 100 plus more. So there's at least 102. But it's nice, especially for the African American players, to do this, because it kind of humbles them in my mind, Scott. You know what I mean? They're humbled by the situation. So this day is really for them. If it wasn't for Jackie Robinson, they wouldn't have a place on MLB rosters.
And they're appreciative of that, and they want to keep that tradition going, and they want to help raise the awareness of baseball in Black communities to get more young African American kids playing the game in this country. And they're trying to do a lot of things to help the game grow. So yeah, it's a great thing.
It really is a great thing. Now, Major League Baseball and the Atlantic League. This is really, really interesting to me. They're going to be trying out a couple new rules inside the Atlantic League. One of them is kind of a DH takeaway rule. I don't know where in the hell they came up with this, but the rule basically states that a DH has to come out the same time the starting pitcher comes out of the game. And then the other rule that I saw was the pitcher's mound was going to be lengthened by 1 foot. First of all, Scott, I want your thoughts on the DH rule and how dumb this is. Because, I mean, come on, leave the game alone at any level.
That rule doesn't make any sense. So all we keep hearing is the Major League Baseball wants to put the designated hitter, make a universal DH because they want more offense in the game. And you don't want pitchers hitting, you want the DH hitting. So now you're going to come up with a rule that if the starting pitcher comes out, your starting designated hitter comes out. So then who DHs? So then you've got a bench guy that's probably not really a DH. And that's just stupid. It makes no sense. And the pushing the mound back is another dumb rule. It's been 60 feet 6 inches since baseball started. Just leave it alone. There's no reason for this. I mean, they keep using the Atlantic League to test these stupid rules that never go anywhere. So it's not something that is going to come to Major League Baseball or anything else, but it's just, I don't know why they keep coming up with these dumb things.
I really don't know why either, Scott. It's basically something that I wish would just go away. The sad part is it probably won't. You're going to see more and more dumbass rules being tested, and it's not going to be for anybody's liking. I saw this earlier, Scott. I posted this on the page. Pete Rose is now picking MLB games for a gambling site and takes a shot at the Yankees. Just forget the rest of that. Pete Rose is picking games for a gambling site. Does this guy ever quit betting?
No, and I mean, there's no reason for him to at this point. I mean, he's not getting back into Major League Baseball, so I'm sure he's making a ton of money doing that. They're using his name and his likeness and his endorsement. So, Pete's making some money. Pete turned 80 the other day, so happy belated birthday, Pete Rose. So what did he take a shot at the Yankees for?
He took a shot at Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, basically because they were struggling. I mean, this is nothing. I just found it odd that he took shots at those guys. That seemed odd to me as well. I guess as a bettor, you're gonna take a shot at somebody if you lose. I mean, Scott, did you ever bet?
Yeah, the only time I really ever gamble is on sports. I'm not a casino guy, but yeah, I gamble on sports. I love to bet on sports. I can understand going back to Pete Rose taking a shot at Stanton and Judge. I'm sure that Pete is probably ripping them for not playing a whole lot, for being so injury prone, for being inconsistent, because that's everything that is the opposite of what Pete Rose was as a baseball player. Charlie Hustle, who was out there every game, whether he was hurt or not, and played for all those years. I'm sure that irritates him like it does a lot of older players.
In this article, it says he's still opinionated too. Rose says he'd never have missed a bunch of games for muscle strains like Yankee sluggers Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton in the past seasons. Well, and Scott, I think that has a lot to do. The muscle strains have to do with different conditioning. Guys are coming into camps in better shape, bigger and better shape than they were back in Pete Rose's day. Am I wrong on that?
So if they're in bigger and better shape, then why are they missing time from muscle strains that guys in the 60s and 70s and 80s weren't?
Yeah, but Scott, think about this.
That's Pete's argument.
Well, I get it, Scott, but there wasn't much weightlifting back then, though. There wasn't as much like bulk weightlifting like there is now. And these guys that are built like that, I'm talking about Judge and Stanton, baseball players should never be built like that, in my mind, because they're always going to be injury prone. A baseball player should be, yes, they should be in shape, but don't look like an NFL tight end, because you're going to get hurt more times than not in this game. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to make an argument to that. Go back and look at guys like Dave Winfield and Reggie Jackson and Mark McGwire. Even McGwire. I mean, McGwire was never injury prone. Yeah, he had the bad knee at one point where he missed a year, but for most of his career, McGwire was never hurt, and he was big and bulky. Dave Winfield was huge. I mean, there were lots of guys back in the 80s and 90s that were big guys, and they didn't have all of these issues that these guys are having.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's amazing how times have changed, Scott. You didn't see nearly as many injuries that you do now, and if you don't attest that to working out and everything and conditioning, what do you attest that to?
Some of it is teams and ownership and the amount of money, because if they're paying guys a ton of money, the salaries they are now, and guys have little injuries, teams don't want to push them on the field because they don't want that money sitting on the bench a whole lot. So there's some of that to it too. And you're right, there are some of the guys. I mean, Giancarlo Stanton, when you get that big and bulky, you are going to have, there are muscles there that don't really work with baseball. So some of the weightlifting stuff, there is something to that to a certain extent, but we do see a lot more injuries, and part of it is too, the guys play baseball year round now. Kids in high school, kids in little league, kids in college, they're not playing multiple sports. They're playing baseball all year long, and we're seeing more and more injuries from young kids than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, you're seeing it more. You're seeing more injuries to young kids, and I think, Scott, the injury proneness, I think that starts when you're a kid, though, and not playing multiple sports. If you play multiple sports, you're able to keep in shape and not be as injury prone. Right?
That's what I just said.
Oh, yep. That is exactly what you just said. That's on me. So, I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully we don't see as many injuries like we have been, because I like Stanton, I like Judge, but maybe that's not the right body type. Well, Scott, we're 2 weeks into the baseball season, and I want to get your thoughts on the St. Louis Cardinals period. 2 weeks into the season, they had a series where they lost 2 of 3 against the Reds. You sweep the Marlins, then you lose 2 of 3 against the Brewers, and you lose 2 of 3 against the Nationals. My question to you is, Scott, where would this team be without that series against the Marlins? Again, the Marlins are a good team. That's not saying anything against the Miami Marlins.
I mean, that was a big series for the Cardinals, like we talked about. They pitched well in that series, and they got clutch hits. Everybody's panicking about the Cardinals right now. The Cardinals have too many questions. The Cardinals are this, the Cardinals are that. What you got to realize is that you have 2 of your starting outfielders on the disabled list, and you have 2 of your starting pitchers on the disabled list. So you're trying to play, you're trying to put a Band-Aid on stuff and make it work to start the season. Yeah, they've had struggles. They're going to be fine. People need to calm down. It's 12 games into the season. There's lots of other teams around baseball that are struggling. Look at the Braves. The Braves aren't playing well. Look at the Yankees. The Yankees aren't playing well. Look at Oakland. Nobody thought Oakland was going to be this bad. It's 12 games into the season. We've got 150 games to go. The Cardinals are going to be fine. You're going to get KK back this weekend. Guys in that bullpen, guys that were in the rotation that were supposed to be in the bullpen are going to go back to the bullpen and take the roles that they were supposed to have, which is going to make the bullpen better. It's going to make your rotation better. Tyler O'Neill is going to be back in probably about 10 days. So then you don't have all of the strange players you've had in the outfield. You're not going to see Austin Dean running around in left field looking like he has no idea what he's doing, hopefully. The guy that they really miss, and I know people don't want to hear this, but the guy that they've really missed is Harrison Bader, because he is the best defensive player on this team, outfielder-wise. He's an elite center fielder, and you've seen that you've missed him. And Dylan Carlson's done a great job when he's been in center field, but then what's happened is that, you've had issues in left and right because you don't have O'Neill, and you have somebody else in right field. We've seen the struggles, like I said, that Austin Dean's had. We've seen the struggles that Lane Thomas has had. Thomas got sent down today. So, you're missing those two guys. They were supposed to be, even if they didn't hit, that's what everybody talked about. Think about it. You got to remember that. Everybody talked about, even if those guys don't hit, they're elite defenders in the outfield. No ball's going to get down in the outfield because those three guys are going to run them down. Well, you're missing two of those guys, and we've seen the effects. Poor Adam Wainwright suffered about 5 runs that shouldn't have happened yesterday because those guys weren't there. So, sorry, Joe, I'm going to stop here in a second. Your outfield's going to get better in a couple of weeks. Your pitching staff is going to get better starting on Saturday. This team's going to be fine. Do they still need to add an outfield bat at some point, potentially, down the road, closer to the trade deadline? Yeah, I think they do. And they may even add another pitcher, and hopefully it's the guy that we see in Washington this coming week, and Mr. Scherzer. Hopefully he's in Cardinal uniform at the end of July. Maybe we need to start a Max Scherzer to St. Louis shirt. The Arenado thing works. Maybe we should start doing that for Scherzer now too.
And maybe if we do it enough, maybe Scherzer will see it. Maybe Scott, and this will be a stretch. I think Washington's coming back again this year. The thing is, why don't we see if we can get into the Washington dugout, put a shirt on a hanger, right? And just hang it in the Washington dugout. And then Scherzer will see it and just take it down. But, of course, he'll see it and be like, hey, these guys really want me here. So
I'll tell you what. I'll give you the shirt and the hanger, and you go try to sneak that into the Washington dugout. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, that was really a joke, Scott. But, I wouldn't do that. But, hey, it worked before, so why wouldn't it work now? I get it. But, Scott, the thing I worry about with this team is you talk about the pitching. We just haven't seen guys go more than 5 innings yet. Granted, okay, I will kind of counter-argument that too, because you had a 60-game season last year, right? So the conditioning's different for a 60-game season as opposed to a 162-game schedule. And maybe because that's the only reason I can think that pitchers aren't going as long. Am I wrong on that?
I don't know. I think they are being overly cautious. We talked about that. I think Adam Wainwright could have gone another inning the other night. I think you could have let Jack Flaherty go longer in that game 2 nights ago. You're going to start seeing that. I think you'll see KK go longer. Carlos has gotten 5. You're getting guys through 5. You need to get them through at least 6. I think it's coming. Let guys work it out. I think it'll happen. Again, like I said, you get KK back and you move Gant or Ponce, whichever one, back into the bullpen, and that strengthens your bullpen. It strengthens your rotation. This team's going to be okay. They're going to score enough runs. Their defense is going to play better when you get these guys back. I'm not worried about the Cardinals, honestly.
You know who should be worried, Scott? Before we go, I got one more piece of business baseball-wise. Cub fans. How long until How long until all these guys? I almost said Kyle Schwarber. How long before all these guys get traded? Granted, again, it's 12 games into the season, but they're not scoring runs. Their team average is about 100. Like it's that bad in Chicago right now.
Yeah, Cubs fans aren't worried about it. If you go look at Cubs fans' pages and Chicago Tribune and everything in Chicago, the Cubs fans are ready for them to blow it up and trade everybody now. You know, they're done with it in Chicago. So, you know, I think if they don't get better by the trade deadline, I think you're going to see a lot of moves. You know, we've talked about it a million times. I think the guy that really surprises me that's having a horrible year through 12 games is Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo's only hitting like 115 or something right now, which that's the one that really surprises me.
Yeah, it really surprises me too, but I mean, part of me, Scott, loves to see the Cubs struggle, but part of me hates the fact that it's this bad. It's almost becoming lovable loser bad now in terms of the offense.
That's what they are. They're the Cubs, completely useless by September, and they had a couple-year run where they were relevant. Now it's time for them to spend the next 100 years sucking again, you know, and I'm completely fine with that.
I'm completely fine with that too. Well, Scott, tell everybody what we got coming up next here on Crunch Time.
Next segment, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the Blues and their upcoming big game on Saturday. Start to preview that a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. So come back with us right here on Crunch Time. Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. I'm Joe Hamilton alongside Scott Tobin. The St. Louis Blues are they're in the middle of their toughest stretch of hockey. I mean, the month of April is brutal to this point, and they haven't exactly folded under pressure. They came out before yesterday. They were on a 3-game winning streak, of which the team was at 500 at the time of the start of that winning streak. And then yesterday, they just played a better team. And I hate to sound this way, Scott, but the Colorado Avalanche are a much better team than the St. Louis Blues right now. And you know what? That can change in the playoffs, because I also think that the Colorado Avalanche style of hockey can't be sustained in a 7-game series. Do you kind of echo my sentiment on that?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's possible. But real quick, jumping back to the Blues and not trying to totally go away from your topic here. If Colorado is that much better than the Blues, and the Blues play them, 3 out of the next 4 games?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound real good for the Blues' chances of making the playoffs, because if Colorado is that much better than the Blues are, then if the Blues would happen to lose all 3 of those games, their playoff chances are pretty much done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and here's the thing, Scott. They can put together a period where they stymie and make the best line of the Colorado Avalanche defend instead of attack. They do that. They did that in the first period of yesterday's game. They do that all the time. They can beat Colorado, but they need to sustain that. They need to sustain that through a 60-minute game. Scott, how many times have we talked about over the last little while here in terms of years? How many times have we talked about this team not putting a full 60-minute game together? The Blues.
Oh no, I know. I'm not arguing with you at all. That's been their problem for a handful of years now. You know, it's going to be a tough stretch. You know, Colorado is probably a little bit better team than the Blues are, but they've got to play like they did during that 3-game win streak. It's funny, though, you know, they win 3 games. They won those 3 games, and everybody was so excited. And then you go back and look at their record, and you realize they've lost 8 out of their last 11 games. So while that 3-game win streak was nice, their overall last stretch of games is not really pretty when you look at it.
No, it's not. I totally agree with you, Scott. But, yeah, I guess Blues fans, we knew, or at least I did. I don't know about you. I knew the Blues had that gear in them. They have a talented roster, Scott. When I say that Colorado's better than this team right now, that's not talking just roster-wise. It's talking about the system they play and how one team dominates the other. It seems Colorado to me right now reminds me of when Chicago was in their heyday with Kane and Tays. That's the way it looks right now. I mean, do you kind of see that comparison at all?
So wait, so you just kind of contradicted yourself because you said you didn't think Colorado's style would work in the playoffs, and then you just compared them to
I'm talking but Scott, you got to get there first. If you're the Blues, you got to get there first. In a regular season, that can work. But if you're playing a 7-game series, if you're playing a 7-game series against the same team, they're going to realize they got to stop this, they got to stop that, and make their adjustments. You know what I mean?
But what my point was,
okay,
you started that argument by saying Colorado can't win in a playoffs, and their system can't win in the playoffs. It can't work. You don't think it can work. But then, stop. Just listen. Listen to me. And then you compared them to Kane and Taves and the Blackhawks when they were in their dominant run. So those two things don't go together. So do they not work can they not win in the playoffs? Or are they the Chicago Blackhawks during their cup run?
Well, when I talk Chicago Blackhawks, I mean during the regular season where they just seem like every time they have the puck, they keep the puck for the long periods of time. That's what I meant with the Chicago Blackhawks thing. But here's the thing. They did the right thing getting a goaltender in Dubnyk. But at the same time, Scott, I think that speed's going to be worn down in a 7-game series. I think while they have speed and it's working during the regular season, you're playing the same team at most 7 times during a postseason series. That's why I say that, Scott. And I'm really just questioning that to you. And that's my theory. Do you think the style that Colorado plays, let's say the Blues play Colorado in the first round, can that style be stopped in the 7-game series?
To be completely honest with you, I don't have a whole lot in. It goes back to my years of watching really good Blues teams not play well down the stretch and in the postseason. And I know they won a cup a couple of years ago. I expect the Blues to fall apart. That's just the Blues fan in me that's seen it happen so many times. So no, I do not think they can win a 7-game series against Colorado. They haven't shown me enough to make me think they have any chance of winning a 7-game series against Colorado.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't know if they can. And frankly, I don't know if they can win a 7-game series against anybody. And that's not saying that will happen, because surely they could go on a run. But their goaltending needs to be. They could, but Scott, again, their goaltending has to be consistent. You can't have a 50 save, 50 out of 51 save performance and then give up 3 goals the next game. You can't do that.
I mean, that's going to happen. That's hockey. That's any sport. It's going to happen. You're going to have highs and lows. But you can't lose 3 at this point. You can't lose 2 or 3 games like that. You have to play pretty solid. You just don't want the extremes. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they can definitely go on a run. I just don't have a lot of confidence in them right now, to be honest with you. And I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see them go on a Stanley Cup run, but I've seen enough of the Blues this time of year in the postseason to not have a whole lot of confidence in them.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, Scott, and I hope we have the Jordan Binnington of 2019 back. I really do. But time he showed flashes, and his attitude makes me think that Jordan Binnington's back too. So let's hope he keeps that up. Now, first of all, before you get back to St. Louis and play Colorado in 3 games, you got the Arizona Coyotes. Last time I checked, the Blues and the Arizona Coyotes have had the St. Louis Blues number over the last 3-4 years. For some reason, they cannot beat the Arizona Coyotes. What's it going to take for the Blues to beat the Arizona Coyotes Saturday?
They have to play really good hockey. Like we talked about, you have to have your goalie come out and play a good game. Your defense can't make mistakes in their own zone, and then your offense needs to show up. You need the Mike Hoffman that scored 4 goals this past week to show up. You need Vladdy Tarasenko to look good. You need Ryan O'Reilly to play like he's played the last week, and that's what you need. You need your stars to show up and play like stars. And for a good part of this season, we didn't have that. Even when they were healthy, they weren't doing it. They're starting to do it a little bit now. So that's what you need, and that's what could put them on a run.
Yeah, that's what could. And you gotta get past Arizona first. Then all those games, Scott, against Colorado at home. At home. That usually would mean success for any NHL team, right? Usually a team's good at home. Not the St. Louis Blues. Not the St. Louis Blues. So hopefully they can get back on the winning track at home over the next 2 weeks. Because Scott, they got 3 weeks left in the season, about a month?
About a month, yeah. You know what they should do, Joe? Instead of wearing wear your road jerseys at home. Maybe they'll get confused and think they're playing on the road.
You know what? Ken Hitchcock, and this might be a stretch, Scott. Remember when they were in the playoffs? I think it was 2016 in their cup run then that almost happened. They were on the
I remember.
They'd be at home, right? And they'd stay in a hotel. I'm not saying do that for a month. I'm just saying do that getting close to the playoffs if you by chance get in. And just the last week of the season, stay in a hotel. I don't care if you're at home or not. Maybe get these guys out of their comfort zones. Do you kind of know where I'm going with this here? That's what Ken Hitchcock did, and it seemed to work for at least that round.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't know if they're going to do that just because of the whole COVID thing. They probably don't want them in a hotel and take a chance of something happening this year. I see where you're coming from. But, yeah, maybe try to switch something up. Like I said, maybe wear your road jerseys at home. Just do something to just kind of flip the switch a little bit, change it up, and see if something sparks something. You never know. It doesn't hurt to try.
It's amazing, Scott. I don't think we've seen the St. Louis Blues team have more than a day off at a time. It's almost weird not having a game yesterday and not having a game today, isn't it?
It is. Oh, I know what the Blues should do to get them through this, Joe. You know what they should do? They should wear the red retro jerseys for the rest of the season and all of the playoffs.
Scott, if they wore the reverse retros, they haven't won in those yet.
We're changing things up. That's going to be a rally cry. We need to wear the reverse retros for the rest of the year, and we win a cup. My prediction.
All right. You heard it here, You heard it here first, folks. But let's go to the NHL scoreboard real quick while we have a little bit of time. The New York Islanders played the Boston Bruins today, and Taylor Hall's debut. Boston wins that game 4-1. Taylor Hall scores, and wow, what a beginning for Taylor Hall in Boston. You have the New Jersey Devils playing in New York against the New York Rangers. That game ends 4-0. New York, the winner in that one. Florida and Tampa Bay, the Battle of Florida. Tampa Bay wins this one 3-2. You have the Buffalo Sabres getting a win against the Washington Capitals. Final score 5-2 in that one. You have the Nashville Predators losing to the Carolina Hurricanes 4-1. You have the Philadelphia Flyers and Pittsburgh Penguins. The Philadelphia Flyers win 2-1. You got the Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Winnipeg beats Toronto by a final 5-2. Detroit and Chicago and Detroit played in Detroit, and the Red Wings beat the Blackhawks by a score of 4-1. And you have the Columbus Blue Jackets and Dallas Stars. Over 11 minutes left in that one. That score is 3-1 Dallas, and it's weird, Scott. We're in a division we don't even get to see Dallas. That's awful, man. I still don't know if I like these alignments. But then again, Scott, I don't know where the Blues would be in that Central Division either. I mean, you look at that Central Division; it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, all the divisions are tough. It would have been tough in the Central. It's different to play different teams, to see these West Coast teams all year. But, it's a weird year. Hopefully next year we go back to normal and see the teams that we're used to and play in the Central, and things will be back to normal hopefully last year. This is just another one of those weird years due to the whole COVID thing, man.
Well, yep, I'm hoping so too. You got the vaccine out and everything. So when we come back, we're going to rush around the league, talk about a few more sports stories. One of them has to do with the NFL. We'll get to that right after this here on Crunch Time.
Theo here on ASTV. Check out my show Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. On the Ice. Me and my guests break down all of the hottest and latest topics surrounding the world of hockey.
Check out On the Ice and other great shows here on ASTV. They are surely a delight. Now, Scott, your Dallas Cowboys made a move. And I'm not sure if I don't know how you feel about this move, being a Cowboy fan for as many years as you have been. Just Aldon Smith has signed a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Your thoughts? Go ahead.
No, he wasn't Dallas. He signed a 1-year deal with Seattle. He's leaving.
My God. I'm sorry. They didn't have him in a Seattle jersey. The Seattle Seahawks and Aldon Smith. Is that a match made in heaven? Yes or no?
He's going to help their pass rush, definitely. They didn't get a whole lot from their defensive line. He was good in Dallas last year, after having to miss 4 years with his personal issues. I mean, the guy was one of the best pass rushers in the league when he first came into the league in San Francisco. Him and Justin Smith, the two former Mizzou Tigers, helped get that team to a Super Bowl run a few years ago. And he was on pace to be one of the best pass rushers in the league. And then his personal demons caught up with him. He had to miss 4 years, but he came back, played in Dallas last year. He had 6 sacks. He had 48 tackles. He had 25 quarterback pressures. He had a couple of forced fumbles. He had an interception return. I mean, he's a force. And so, yeah, he's definitely going to help that pass rush in Seattle.
Do you think that what does Seattle need to do to make that defense better than what it was? I mean, it wasn't good last year at all.
You know what, though? They weren't good in the first half of the season. That team was really weird last year. The first half of the season, Russell Wilson was having an MVP caliber season, and I kept talking about I didn't trust Seattle because their defense wasn't very good. And then they got to the halfway point of the season, and their defense started playing better, and Russell Wilson in that offense was awful the second half of the season. Wilson was turning the ball over. Their offense just didn't play well. So Aldon Smith is going to help. The guy that gave them a pass rush before he got hurt last year was Jamal Adams, the safety, the superstar safety that they traded from the Jets. He's going to be back. He and those guys will help make that defense better. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Seattle. Seattle is trying to fix their offensive line. We know that Russell Wilson has complained and been up front and out in the media talking about his displeasure with some of the moves that Seattle's made. So we'll see if they can get that offensive line fixed. We'll see what they do in the draft. And, they're still talking about he hasn't signed back in Tampa. Russell Wilson's worked out with Antonio Brown a few times. There's still been some rumors that Antonio Brown could go to Seattle. So that would be an interesting move there as well.
Now, talking about Antonio Brown, do you think he's kind of done with his antics? You think he's grown up a little bit, Scott? Because there wasn't any issue playing with Tom Brady last year. But then again, if you're playing with Tom Brady, you better not have any head games.
Well, I mean, except that he has, him, for whatever reason, him and Tom Brady are big buddies. But you got to remember that Antonio Brown went to New England and played with Brady for one game, and then the Patriots kicked him off the team. And then, last year he wasn't there for the full season. He only got there midway through the season and played the last few games and into the playoffs. Who knows with Antonio Brown? There's still some lawsuits floating around. He's not totally over all of his issues. So we'll see what happens. I mean, he can still be a productive player. He's not the force that he was in Pittsburgh a few years ago, but he can still help teams.
Yeah, he can still help teams. I don't know if you think he'd fit well in that system, Seattle?
In Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he would help. I mean, they've got some weapons in Seattle. The guy although I don't know, I say that, and then at the same time, I don't know how he and DK Metcalf work together, because DK Metcalf was starting to show some prima donna issues himself towards the end of the season last year. spouting off, getting into it with the offensive coordinator. Him and Russ got into it on the sideline one time. So I don't know. Like I said, on the field as a player, yeah, he helps. I don't know if you already have potentially some issues in the locker room if he's a guy you want to bring in.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the kind of guy you want to bring in myself. But, Scott, I'm going to give you a couple teams here, and I want you to tell me what they need to do in your mind what they need to assess in this draft. And I'm going to start with one team. And that team is the San Francisco 49ers. What do they need to focus on first?
Well, from everything we hear, they're going to go get a quarterback. It sounds like, they've traded up in the draft. So it sounds like they're going to take a quarterback with that third pick in the draft. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that works. They lost some players on defense. They need to kind of restock that defense. They've got a couple of holes on their offensive line that they need to rebuild and refill. So I would say quarterback, linebacker, safety, and probably offensive line would be their top needs in San Francisco.
All right, I'll stick with – actually, no, I'm going to go to the NFC East now. What about the Philadelphia Eagles? There's a chance they draft a quarterback, but then again, they could be in on Deshaun Watson. But what should they do in the draft? If this is a rebuilding team, where do you start?
Yeah, that's a good question. Are they happy with with Jalen Hurts? Do they think they need a quarterback because they're in position they could try to draft one if they wanted to? We've heard them linked to Deshaun Watson more and more here in the last couple of weeks, so that could be a possibility, although there's still a lot of questions on what his future has in store. There's a lot of stuff Philadelphia can do. I mean, we keep hearing the rumor that they made Trey Ertz to Buffalo, to get draft picks. So that would be a big move if they did that. They need to fix their offensive line. They need another superstar young wide receiver. They could fill some holes on their offensive line and their defense. I mean, that's kind of where their issues at quarterback started, was their offensive line wasn't very good, and so the quarterbacks kept getting sacked. So offensive line is definitely something they need to look at.
Yeah, offensive line is something they definitely need to look at. Isn't that most every team, though, Scott? Is that your number one thing, is to protect the quarterback? Or at least it should be.
It has to be, especially if you have a young star quarterback. I've said this a million times. You can have the star quarterback, you can have the weapons on the outside, you can have the running back, but if you don't have the hogs in the trenches on the offensive and defensive line, it's not going to matter because you're not going to win. That's where you have to build your team, is on the offensive and defensive lines, because if you can't control those, you're not going to win games.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, we'll be talking about more and more teams as the draft gets closer. But, Scott, I want to end the show tonight with one story in the world of golf. Jack Nicklaus is gonna be in town revitalizing Normandy Golf Club. What is this going to do for the community? I know they want to clean that area up. What are you hearing in that regard?
I mean, Normandy Hills is a legendary golf course. It's going to help. I mean, anytime you can get a legend like Jack Nicholson involved, that golf course that is a historic golf course. And, Jack coming in, he's created and helped revive golf courses all over the country. He's got quite a few in the state of Missouri, all over the place. So anything that he can do to help make that golf course a top-notch golf course in the area is a great thing. And it's good for golfers and golf fans in the St. Louis area, because that will be a top-notch course when they're done. And like I said, that's a historic course already.
Are you a golfer, Scott?
Do I like golf? Do I play golf? Yes. Would I consider myself a golfer? No.
What's your best round?
Oh, I've had some decent ones. Like I've told you guys, I can hit the hell out of a golf ball. I can drive the golf ball with anybody. My short game sucks. So yeah, if I don't have to putt, I'm really good.
That's good. I mean, your short game's good then.
No, it's not. It's not good if you can't putt.
Well, Scott. I mean, it sounds like your long game's better than your short game. Am I wrong on that?
No, no. My long game's good. I can get the ball to the hole. It's just getting it in the hole. Sometimes it doesn't exactly work the way I want it to.
Quickly, what's your longest drive in the realm? I know you don't know exactly, but what's your longest drive in the realm of, distance?
350, 400 yards.
Damn. Okay, Happy.
I told you I can crush a golf ball.
And I remember going to a golf course, or at least going to a round, or going into a driving range, and my dad trying to hit golf balls. He goes, "I have more of a baseball swing. Is there really much of a difference between a baseball swing and a golf swing?"
There is. I mean, there's similarities, but there are definitely differences too in the way you swing your hips. And just the hitch in your hips and your legs, just in your arm swing. There's definitely different tendencies to it. But I've always said if you can hit a baseball, you can hit a golf ball.
Yeah, I would say so too. So, Scott, do you have anything before we get out of here tonight?
One more thing, just I was going to throw out there. You were talking about we're going to do the draft sometime in the next couple of weeks. We haven't locked down the exact date yet, but friend of the show, good buddy Anthony Stalter, is going to jump on here with us sometime in the next 10 days or so to really take a look at the NFL draft and give us his thoughts and kind of break things down team by team. So anxious to get Anthony back on the show, and so that'll be fun getting his thoughts on what quarterbacks coming into this draft are going to be good and who he thinks needs to do what. So it'll be a fun conversation when we get Anthony on, and stay tuned because I'll have details on that here in the next couple of days for everybody.
Ooh, that is going to be interesting, Scott. There was one more story on the NCAA that I almost forgot about. Kind of dive into that real quick because I found that to be interesting. Just for the viewers that don't know, kind of describe it.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about the rule that you can transfer schools and not have to miss a year? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big move for college athletes because, forever, if you transferred from one Division I school to another, you had to wait a year, sit out a year, unless you were a graduate transfer, which means you'd already graduated college, of course, and you had a year of eligibility left. So for kids to be able to transfer and automatically play is going to kind of change the landscape of college sports because you're going to see a lot more kids transfer, I do believe. Because in the past, they wouldn't because they didn't want to sit out that year. So now that you don't have to, I think you're going to see a lot of kids that are highly recruited quarterbacks or top level kids that get recruited to schools and then get there and they're going to have to wait a year or two. I think you'll see a lot of those kids end up transferring, possibly even to smaller schools so that they can play right away and don't have to be a backup for a year or something. So I think it really could change the dynamic of some of the power teams that you see around the country in football and basketball and baseball, for that matter.
Man, does this have any ramifications for Mizzou? You think?
I mean, it could, good and bad. It could good and bad because you could get top-notch kids to transfer. Some of those wide receivers or something that are in a place like Alabama that go in as freshmen, and you got a junior senior class in front of you that you may have to wait a year or two, and you're one of the top receivers coming out of high school. Maybe you don't do that now. Maybe you go transfer to a Missouri or somewhere where you start right away. So it could definitely have an impact because you could see a lot of that type stuff where those 5-star kids, where Alabama has them just backed up for years and years coming in, you may see some of those kids go to schools like Missouri and Arkansas and Illinois and places where they don't have to wait. They can start right away.
Man, that would be awesome for Mizzou because maybe this changes the fortunes on the basketball team. Maybe this has guys transferring to Mizzou that maybe makes this program better in the short term too. Because, Scott, we were talking after the tournament, like this team was going to be not bad, but they weren't going to be good.
Yeah, and they've got, we've seen such turnover at that Mizzou basketball team. A couple of the kids that they've had transfer in are pretty talented players. They're going to be better next year, I think, than most people expected them to be because they've had all of these transfers coming in. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly these guys can gel. And Mizzou may be a little better next year than we expected them to be at the end of this season.
I hope you are right. Well, good show tonight, Scott. Thank you, as always. Thank you guys for watching at home. For Scott Tobin, I'm Joe Hamilton. Do the right things out there. Do the right things so we can get back to sporting events and everything. And I love doing this, but I love being out with all of you too. So until next time, for Scott Tobin, I'm Joe Hamilton. We will see you later.